Would you believe me if I told you that this razor-sharp PC Engine capture is upscaled from an S-video source? Well, earlier this year, I learned about a mod for PC Engine, TurboGrafx, and SuperGrafx consoles through a post on RetroRGB.com mentioned in the weekly RetroRGB roundup that made me extremely interested in reintegrating S-video into my setup.
You could also get the correct color palette on S-video,
which would be the TurboNanza by Zaxor, which, in addition to being an RGB mod, also generates S-video internally in such a way that matches the colors of the system's composite video palette, making it currently the sharpest and cleanest method of getting accurate colors out of original hardware when playing these consoles. The TurboNanza is a few years old by now, but for whatever reason it had previously escaped my notice. I bought the mod kit through Zaxor's Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi or Coffee or however you're supposed to say it, and friend of the show Fenris Wolf Retro helped me get it installed into a spare PC Engine I had. He also installed one in Coury's PC Engine Duo RX, so TurboNanza footage in this episode is sourced from those two consoles. Since the TurboNanza is open source, however, it is possible to fabricate your own if you have the know-how, and it's also available from other sellers like Video Game Perfection in Europe. While the TurboNanza is compatible with various versions of the PC Engine, TurboGrafx, and SuperGrafx, including Duo systems, you do need to select the appropriate hardware when ordering your kit. From what it sounds like, experienced modders shouldn't have any trouble installing the TurboNanza as long as the directions are followed carefully, but it may not be a beginner's project. A mini DIN wired up to Sega Saturn specifications replaces the RF output port, and that is an ideal format for a no-cut mod that can support composite, RGB, and crucially, S-video, which other DINs of this size, like Genesis 2, do not support. Do be aware, however, that Sega's official Saturn cables have a unique keyed shape that will not fit into DINs available today, so you'll need to use third-party Saturn cables. We're using the Sega Saturn S-video cable from Insurrection Industries. And note that we've generally recorded composite video in our comparisons from a PC Engine interface unit to serve as a reference of an official NEC video output product. So then, yes, the TurboNanza is an RGB mod, but I'm here for S-video. S-video is not entirely unique in the PC Engine world, but what is unique to the TurboNanza is how it generates S-video internally so that it is derived from the system's composite video palette. We've talked about this before, but the PC Engine and TurboGrafx derive composite and RGB colors from different tables, and they tend to look fairly different from each other. One commonly shared comparison is from Startling Odyssey 2, where two colors in the sky gradient appear so similar in RGB that it almost looks like it's missing a shade. That is a striking, but more unusual example. More generally important is that the composite colors just look less garish compared to RGB, and skin tones are considerably more natural. I was surprised to notice in this comparison that the color cycling animation on the candle looks much smoother with composite and S-video because the RGB palette causes the two brighter frames to have colors that appear very similar. I'd say there's no doubt that the developers chose the colors seen on the left side, not the right. Since NEC never released any products back in the day for tapping into the platform's RGB signal, the composite palette could really be considered the canon palette. But now, thanks to S-video, I think it looks even nicer without all of the artifacts that come part and parcel with composite or RF. Though composite and RF certainly have their place too, and I get it if that's part of the look for you. So how does our S-video capture look so sharp? I mean, have you ever seen such sharp S-video? Well, this is thanks to the enhanced S-video feature on the RetroTINK 4K, the Pro model specifically. The lower cost CE model is only capable of standard S-video processing. So to use Enhanced S-Video, you have to run the signal into the RetroTINK 4K via the VGA-style HD15 connector on the back. We've achieved this by using a composite and S-Video input module alongside a VGA output module with the SVS, the scalable video switch, but standalone adapters are also available, such as the one sold by LaserBear. Running S-Video into the RetroTINK 4K via a VGA cable allows the Luma signal to be routed into the same analog to digital converter as RGB and component signals, while also sending the separate chroma signal into the standard definition processor, or SDP decoder. This means that the S-Video Luma can be processed at the same precision as the Luma portion of a component video signal, while the chroma is processed normally. So, while the fuzzier chroma signal does cause some unavoidable color bleed, the Luma can be upscaled to have edges just as sharp as RGB and component. With these elements combined, the overall perception is that it is extremely sharp. On balance, I'd say that more accurate colors with a bit of color bleed is still preferable to the cleaner image with harsher colors. In short, this method is currently the sharpest and clearest way to play and capture PC Engine and TurboGrafx games with original colors while using original hardware, which is the entire reason I'm so fascinated by all this. And of course, if you're playing with CRT effects or on an actual CRT, then any shortcomings of clarity for the S-Video signal compared to RGB are greatly masked. Softer images are totally fine and even preferable when paired with CRT effects. While I have provided my TurboNanza Enhanced S-Video profile for possible inclusion in future RetroTINK 4K profile packs and have included a link to the profile in the video description below, why don't we dive deeper into it? Because dialing in these settings was definitely a learning experience for me, and maybe it could also help you optimize the profile to suit your setup or your preferences, or to create your own Enhanced S-Video profiles for other consoles. First of all, the correct input selection for Enhanced S-Video is YC on GR Enhanced. Then we want to take a look at a few different settings under Acquisition. The SDP decoder menu is relevant only for composite and S-Video sources. The most fun and essential setting for our purposes here is Chroma Shift, which literally allows you to move the chroma independently of the Luma, making for a pretty striking illustration of how this works. Somewhere around -6 or -7 or so seemed like the best chroma alignment to me, but I don't know if different setup variables may necessitate different values. Setting CTIE to at least 1 is a must. This helps tighten up the chroma bleed fairly significantly, and you may or may not also see improvements when increasing the sharpness value. Set CTIE too high though, and you may get more noticeable pixel flicker. Normally, I would set both of these to 0 to avoid sharpening artifacts when dealing with composite video or normal S-Video, but in the case of Enhanced S-Video, I think these settings help us get closer to our visual target. But remember, the magic trick here is that we're treating the Luma as if it were from a component video source. So the RGB and component ADC menu is also active when using Enhanced S-Video. The sample rate that we want to use for PC Engine is 2730. I'm not really equipped to explain why, but you don't have to take my word for it. The Console Mods RetroTINK 4K wiki has a page full of useful console-specific information to help you get started on making your own profiles. So then, for 256 pixel wide scenes, which most PC Engine games are running at most of the time, we want a decimation factor of 8. As always, phase and subphase are something that will not likely match between two different setups. So for the best results, you'll need to set these after downloading a profile. These phase settings define the points in the signal from which the samples that create our crisp pixels are taken. If things look weird or overly flickery, then the samples are being taken too close to the transitions between pixels, so the phase needs to be set so that that doesn't happen. I recommend that you try to set the phase manually. because it's really not that hard and will get you a better result with rougher signals compared to autophase. It's like an eye exam, but easier. Just determine which 2 phases look the best. I mean, there's only 8 to go through, so it's not hard. And then move the sub-phase back and forth on those settings to determine which looks the cleanest overall, and then save it. As for the low pass filter, normally I'd prefer the LPF to be set to 16 megahertz or medium, but in this case I thought things generally looked slightly better at 9 megahertz or strong, but there are pluses and minuses between these 2 settings, so just see what looks better in your setup or to your preference. And that's pretty much it, except PC Engine games can also use higher horizontal resolutions. To accommodate for that, we need to go into the sample rate detection menu and turn on auto decimation factor. Make sure the ADC sample rate is set to 2730, and then enable the 2nd and 4th progressive detection modes. Next, load up a game that runs in a higher resolution mode. Games from IREM tend to do this. And then return to the RGB component ADC menu to set your decimation phase and subphase, which is even easier this time since there are only 6 phases. Based on my results when using the 240p test suite, this should accommodate games that use 320 or 352 pixels horizontally. Some games may even jump back and forth between 256 pixel wide scenes and higher resolution scenes, like Jack Nicklaus's Turbo Golf, so using auto detection is definitely for the best here. Luckily, the RetroTINK 4K will remember your manual phase setting for each decimation factor separately, so once you've saved your profile after setting for each resolution mode, you won't have to mess with it again, or worry that phase for one resolution will mess up things for another. I had mixed results when trying to enable auto switching for 512 pixel wide content in the 240p test suite, but I've never encountered that mode in any actual games for the system as far as I know, though I'm sure they exist, maybe for like some high-res kanji or something like that. I don't know. But if you do want to try to accommodate for this, enable the 6th progressive detection mode, and possibly also experiment with setting the sample rate to 2728 and adjusting your phase for each mode accordingly. No matter what I did though, I found that enabling detection for 512 in this way would often cause false readings for 256 or vice versa, which looks bad. So unless you know you need it for something in particular, it may be best to only enable the 2nd and 4th detection modes, which is how it is in the profile I've uploaded. If you want to play with CRT effects, however, then all of this auto decimation resolution detection stuff isn't really necessary. Disable decimation, and that'll get you generic sampling, which won't cause you any problems at all when going for a CRT look. And in this case, the RetroTINK 4K CE will get the job done too, and you're still getting a tangible benefit over composite. One last quick note on video quality. PC Engine can be prone to jailbars, as seen here with my RGB modded PC Engine interface unit. However, when installing the TurboNanza into this PC Engine, Fenris Wolf Retro also gave it a jailbar fix, the instructions for which can also be found on the console mods wiki. So I just wanted that to be clear, that the jailbar-free capture you've been seeing is thanks to a separate mod, which generally just amounts to replacing some capacitors. The PC Engine, or TurboGrafx, whatever you choose to call it, continues to be one of my favorite underdog consoles, and I'm so happy that people are still doing cool stuff with it. This TurboNanza system is shaping up to be such a great pairing with the Turbo EverDrive Pro for enjoying CD games in color-accurate S-video. Maybe someday it'll be possible to get these colors with RGB from original hardware, but for now, this is my favorite way to play PC Engine.